So, hello everybody. I'm Sazez.
That's Kima.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to keep going. Yes. Hello for future individuals watching. My name is Kima.
We have never done this workshop without people actively present. So we are going to try to make this as concise and as beneficial as we can for those who come back and watch it. Poetry as Mental Health is a fairly new Do More program in which we explore mental health through writing and poetry, and writing and poetry as a means of self-exploration and also self-regulation, decompression, expressing things that maybe you have not been able to express before and you feel very voiceless in some of your experiences. And so through this workshop, we both work with the Black Mental Health Alliance to have somebody there who is a professional in the mental health industry and workspace and can give us some terminology and explanations behind different mental health illnesses, what causes them, what exacerbates them, what are some of the triggers, and also not always mental health illnesses, sometimes just difficult experiences that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis, especially in our current world. So that's a brief summary of what Poetry as Mental Health is. Anything you would like to add, Kima?
No, that pretty much sums it up. Yeah, we are heavy on poetry as mental health being an intergenerational climate. We are heavy on it being very inclusive of all people, especially Black and Brown, especially non-cis het people. And poetry as mental health is just meant to be a space where a lot of people can kind of stand in what it means to have cognitive distortions, whether it be minor bumps in the road and dealing with what we deal with today, or whether it be a prolonged trauma that needs to be let out. So yeah.
And also a major part of what me and Kima have discussed a lot and what we aim to do through this workshop and this workshop series is draw some very clear connecting lines between mental health and environment, because so often we're told that mental illness is inherent instead of like inherited, because we have these environments that we've inherited. We have these unnatural living conditions that do not make being alive easy. Especially if you are not a person with generational wealth, and especially if you're not a person who has access and has acquired the means to make it more livable. And so that's a big thing for us too, like really focusing in, like Kima said, the reason why some of the target groups are marginalized groups, because marginalized groups struggle the most with mental health illness, and understanding why we exist in that dimension of being. So yeah, that's everything. And we are going to start with a opening question that I guess everyone here will just answer.
Yes. So our opening question, basically, we just want everybody who is watching this in the future to think of their favorite memory. So I'm trying to think. The first thing that comes to mind for me personally, my favorite memory would have to be, it's hard because how can you rank memories, but I guess something that really sticks out for me is a lot of my favorite memories I cannot say, but I guess for me a pretty recent favorite memory would be hanging out with my friends all together. We did a painting session for one of our friends' birthdays, and I don't know, it was just really nice. It was spiritually helpful because I just was dealing with a lot of my own cognitive distortions at the time. So it was nice to find a way to like relax in all of that, and all of the chaos and things like that. And it was a very physically healing activity to sit there and see the different variations of people coming out on like a canvas and things like that. So it was just very fun. Me and my friends, like, yeah, it was just, I just love hanging out with my homies. So I would say that's a pretty recent favorite memory of mine.
I too have a lot of recent memories that I hold very close to me. I think the memory that is sticking out in my head right now because of like the simultaneous like presence and intensity of it was I was in St. Thomas, and this one night, it had been a hard trip. It had been a really hard trip. And this one night, me and a couple of the people my age just went out and just, explored a little bit and went to the beach later on. We were at the beach at nighttime, and they were like trying to get some coconuts off the tree in the back. And there was like a little Shih Tzu that one of Nyama had brought with her. And he was just like running around into the water. It was really cute. And I just had a really profound moment where I got really, really present on that beach, and like looking at the moon was beautiful. I just had this moment where I was like, I feel so content right now. And it's nothing crazy going on. It's just a puppy and some water and the sky and some coat. Like it's nothing intense going on, but like I feel so good. Like I feel like if I died, this is one of the moments that would like flash before my eyes. And I've had a few moments like that since then, but I think that being the first that I remember, I hold it very closely to me.
Jay.
My son, you are not exempt.
I have a lot of recent memories, but also a lot of old memories. And the one that sticks out to me at the moment is actually a memory that I had a dream about the memory recently. And so I remember I was really young. So past the age of 3, I didn't ever live with my dad. So he lived in Maryland. Me and my sister lived in Pennsylvania, and he would come and visit periodically. And I guess I was probably like 5 or something. This is like a really super early memory. And he came to visit, and we went to like the park, and we were playing catch with like a football. And my dad used to play football. But this was the first time that I ever like actually saw him playing football. I always heard about him playing football. It was the first time I ever saw him like doing it in live action. And it was like just, throwing the ball around, and then he like made a little move and a spin. And it was like a big deal in my little head, like, wow, he's doing the thing. Like, my dad's big and fast. And it was just like a whole little memory of that moment and that day. And we went to McDonald's afterwards, and that's when they was like Happy Meals, and you get a toy inside, and the toy was like this weird little Mardi Gras mask, and you put it on, and it stank. Like the plastic smelled real funky, and we was like, "Oh, these masks stink. We don't want these." And you're like, nothing wrong with the mask, and he put it on. Was like, "Oh, it do stink." That's just one of those vivid days. In my head, it was like a black and white. Like there was no color. The whole day was black and white. Weird. Yeah.
Jay.
You're making my inner child want to go get a Happy Meal.
Well,
It was
they have Encanto toys and the Happy Meals.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I'm about to go get one.
Yeah. Oh my God. Have you seen? Okay, not to sidetrack, but you've seen Encanto, right, Langston?
Many times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. We on this. I'm glad we on this. We should all watch it together. Anyways. Okay.
All the songs are so great.
Okay.
I do like that you brought up Encanto going into this opening question. Our opening question for today, and if you are watching this workshop and you want to like jot down some of your favorite memories and just write them down for yourself in the portion we're talking in the background, do that. Or pause this and write down your favorite memories, because the opening question is, who were you before the world told you who you should be? And I think that when we look back at moments that were very special and important to us, we actually get a very clear glimpse of ourselves. And the moments where we're not focused on ourselves and we are just existing, when we look back on them and reflect on them, we get maybe a clearer picture of who we were before, in the moments where we're not in our minds. And in our minds is where all the stories people have fed us and all the stories we have fed ourselves exist. And so going from that favorite memory and maybe channeling off of it, coming into the question, who were you before you were told who you should be? And if anybody here would like to answer that question, or we need time, maybe we can write about it.
Yeah, I was about to say, for the sake of time, I think maybe we'll answer it in our minds. But yeah, the question is very present, very relevant, because I feel that in relation to being poets, and not even I feel like everyone who writes is a poet, but in relation to being writers, being creators, being people, I feel like it is very important to remember, like remember that the main reason why oftentimes we feel that there is something unattainable that we see in other people and that we don't see within ourselves is because there are a lot of things fed to us. Like, I know we're talking about movies. I really love the movie Soul. If anybody watching has seen that, because you'll see that the reason why it can be so hard to remember like our souls and remember our lives is because like we have often been fed things by other people. So yeah, I just think that's important to remember as we move into the writing and things like that. So yeah.
And if you're having a hard time with that opening question, maybe just look back to your childhood and look back to things that you really enjoyed in your childhood, and how is that symbolic of who you are at a core level. For example, I really, really loved animals growing up. I think that is a tribute to the fact that in nature, I'm very gentle, but in who I've made myself become, or I felt I've had to become, I can be a lot less gentle than how I would be had I not had certain experiences or been indoctrinated with certain ideas and belief systems. So yeah, that's just something you can sit and write about. And going into the prompts.
Yeah, going into the prompts. So we have multiple prompts, well, multiple as in two. So you at home can choose. So the first prompt that we have is write a poem to your younger self, but don't reveal that it's your younger self. And I know that sounds confusing because it's like, well, you already said it's my younger self, but think of it in a way that's like you are talking to a friend, or you are talking to, or you're writing a story and you're trying to keep a twist ending. You're trying to keep it like, you're trying to not make it seem like it's a child. You know what I'm saying? It's like think of it as one of those like movies where like it doesn't reveal who the killer is until the last minute type of thing. So yeah, that's yeah, just write a letter to your write a poem to your younger self, and try to keep it as I don't want to say abstract, but try to keep it as parallel to yourself now as possible, because I think that's a perfect segue from who you were before, who you were told to be before you sorry, I'm forgetting the who were you before the world told you who you needed to be. I think that's perfect, because think about like who you are right now and how that still relates to your younger self, and how you can still speak to yourself in different ways, even if that's a different version of you. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's the first prompt that we have.
And if you reveal yourself to yourself, it'll unravel the timeline and it'll erase you from history. That's all. So you can't tell yourself that you're yourself.
Exactly. So yeah, try to keep it as secretive. Try to keep yourself as secretive from yourself as possible as you write. Keep yourself in suspense as you write that poem.
A really good way to phrase it that would help me would be like, instead of looking back on your younger self, bring your younger self back and like be that person for a second. And if that requires you to really sit in silence for a moment and like maybe just sit doing nothing and just think of yourself and certain feelings you had when you were younger, and feel those sensations and experiences, and then write from that place and from that moment, that is it's a channeling. You're channeling a version of yourself that maybe you feel like doesn't exist anymore, but this is an opportunity to show yourself that this person does still exist and this person does influence you in many ways. So that's prompt option A. And then we have prompt
It's
option.
like that time on Star Trek, the animated series, when Spock went back in time at the same time that he was really supposed to go back in time and see himself. So because he didn't go see himself and he went back in time to a different time, he got erased from the timeline because himself got killed. So then he went back in time to save himself from the La Mancha, and then went back to the future and realized that the reason that he was saved was because he thought that himself was his uncle, but it was really himself coming back in time to save himself. So if he never went back in time to the time when he saved himself, then he would have never survived from the desert.
I really hope somebody watches who understands.
Right, I was about to say, because I'm clueless, but you know what, you got it, because I said I will watch that episode just for you. But yes, and then prompt B, Sazes.
I can't pull it up because I'm zooming on my phone.
Okay, so prompt B is you can choose between two different ones. The last text message that you sent, try to turn that into a poem, and I think that's a really interesting prompt because like it allows you to get creative with like even small things. Because like I'm trying to think, what was the last text message I sent? The last one that I sent was, yeah, our templates have fusion mailing address, but okay, cool, thank you. And that's a really boring text message. That's only has to do with my job, but it's possible to try and get creative with yourself. If you're looking for a challenging prompt that like challenges like just you in a really different way, I think that's a very interesting one. And yeah, you can turn it into anything. Just make anything from these different prompts. And then we also have talk about a time that you were lost. And I think that's a really cool prompt because basically, as we're talking about like our past selves and as we're talking about different versions of ourselves and evolution and cognitive distortions and all these other different things, we're also thinking about like the different things that happen. I think it's important to think about this prompt in a way that like what is the what of why you are the way you are, like what is the what of the who you are, the why you are the way you are. So I think it's important to remember that, and like and in capturing the feeling of being lost, remember what were the things that led you to be that way. It could be yourself, it could be other people, it can be stimulus, it could be a myriad of different things. So it's important to keep those things in mind.
And also feel free to play around with the prompts and be creative with them. So for the person who just joined, we have 3 prompts that you can write to. The first prompt being write a poem as your younger self. Just meaning go back to a place in time when you were younger, maybe in a significant way than you used to be. And write from that space, maybe write about the sensations or the feelings or specific experience. Maybe write about your entire life from the perspective of your younger self. Maybe write about your life now from the perspective of your younger self. But we do not explicitly say you are writing as your younger self, maybe until the end of the poem. That can be more of a revelation. And this is a challenge for you to connect with a version of yourself that you may have been disconnected with for a little while, and perhaps see the way the experiences and the way that that person experienced themselves, your younger self experienced themselves in the world, may give you some insight into how you still experience the world from that same perspective. The second one is to write the last text message that you received. This is like more just a fun, creative prompt that you can do whatever you want with it. Kima, can you read the last text message that you received again?
Yeah, the last text message that I received was, oh, you don't use the Google form, and what's your email? So yes, as you can see, it's not the most interesting text in the world, but it is something that maybe it's a reflection of like how hard work life can be. Maybe it's something that like you can expand upon, like that you like if you even if something as simple as sending an LOL, even that can be something like, what are you laughing out loud about, like, or what are you not? It's just it can be it can turn into whatever you want it to be.
I like the idea of like the work-life element, right? Because you could spin that poem into like, the last text message I received is about work, and maybe you feel alienated from on a social element because maybe all you feel like you do is work. Maybe you feel exhausted because a text message that's supposed to be a social, or you perceive to supposed to be a social communication pattern, all I'm getting or all I'm sending is like messages about work.
This last text message I received long as hell and work as hell.
Yeah. So you can do whatever you want with it. Maybe you haven't received a text message in a long time. Maybe like it's been days since somebody checked up on you and you want to write about how like, I don't even want to talk about the last text message I received because it was 2 weeks ago. Like, you can turn these prompts into whatever is true to your experience. Please do not treat these prompts as concrete things that you cannot manipulate and turn into your own work of art. And the third one was Kima.
I just looked at my last text. That joint say talking to you.
What does that make you think?
That's deep.
I mean, that could be anything that you want it to be. I think that's a lot said in 3 words. So, you know.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
God, like, hold up. I know the intent in which the person said that, but I'm like, hold up, who you really talking to?
Bars.
Yes, that's tough. And then the third prompt that we have is write about a time you were lost, or a time you are lost, a time you are going to be lost. Like Anise says, there's a myriad of different things that you can do with this. I apologize for my background noise, but there's a myriad of different things that you can do with this. So specifically honing in on a time you were lost, parallels, and it has a direct parallel to the question that we asked, the quick right question that we asked, which is, who were you before the world told you who you needed to be? So when you're writing about a time you were lost, think about like the what of what led you to be who you are now. I think that's very important to think about the elements of loss. Like what do we see as lost in ourselves? Like, because sometimes loss can be related to a person, sometimes it can be related to an object, sometimes it can be related to different elements within ourselves. So that's also something to keep in mind as you are writing on that prompt as well. So yeah, those are the 3 prompts that we have. After the 3 prompts, we are also going to feel free to write to those things. If we have maybe if you are writing and maybe we have time to share, we can also do that. But then we're also going to move into the connection to poetry's mental health, which Sazez explained earlier is a mental health initiative that is started by Do More, and we partner with the Black Mental Health Alliance to introduce the connotation and the denotations of mental health, and then how do we combine that, and then how do we lay it all out on paper. So there's a question that we have, how do you decompress? Sazez, if you want to go further into like that question itself.
Decompression is kind of a practice where you kind of relieve some pressure. Maybe you are extremely overstimulated in a moment. Maybe you walk in the crib and your entire family is going at it and you just had a really, really hard day. Some bull happened at school and you are just not in the mood for this. And it feels like there is absolutely nothing you can do to not feel so overwhelmed by what's happening throughout your day and the situation that you are currently in. Decompression is different things we can do to externally and internally to maybe relieve some of the overwhelming feeling that we're experiencing. For me, writing is definitely one of those things. If my mind is overflowing with whatever I'm experiencing at the moment, writing it out, not even thinking about making it sound good, not even thinking about making anything rhyme, having any cool wordplay, literally just writing stuff as if I'm talking, like it's just coming straight out my mouth. No previous thought process going into it. Another thing you can do is changing sensory things around you. Maybe you can't do much about the fact that your whole family is fussing right now, but you can put on some earbuds and listen to music. That's a way that a lot of people decompress, through music, and we don't even know that that's decompression. Maybe you can touch something soft. Sometimes having something to touch and have a sensual feeling around is a good way to focus in on something to an extent where it calms the mind, something repetitive, right? A lot of times when we're overstimulated, what we will do is what we feel we normally do to get pleasure or enjoyment, right? So maybe I turn on the TV to my favorite show, but I'm still feeling irritated. I'm still feeling upset because what's happening is the TV show, even though you usually get it to get some sense of enjoyment, right now you are overstimulated with all the experiences you're experiencing. So it doesn't matter if the next intense experience is pleasurable or not. either way, it's too intense. So turning on the TV when I'm overstimulated is not a form of decompression for me and in the way that I understand simulation. What I need to do is turn on something soothing, something soft. That's some of the ways that I decompress.
Yeah, I was gonna say I also feel like there needs to be a heavy emphasis on decompression sometimes being an uncomfortable process, which is exactly why it parallels to like writing, while it parallels to like talking about like our former selves and the versions of ourselves we used to be and the versions of ourselves we might have lost. Because I think it's important to remember that like in decompression it means to release. Like in order to decompress you have to release, which means that there will be some form of upheaval or cathartic moments you will have in decompression. Because I also feel like there's also like we forget about the processing that comes with decompression and how like the example that you gave, like where you sit with your family and like they're fussing or whatever, like, and it's like there is heaviness in sitting with a family and then coming into like people fussing. Like there's a heaviness that needs to be processed as we deal with those things. So I also want everybody to keep that in mind as we're like thinking about, as we're considering that question and considering that as we write it down, that like decompression, even the non-pleasurable, what is decompression even in the non-pleasurable sense as well.
I like that you brought that up because specifically with men, one of the only outlets that men feel they have access to in decompression is physical activity. Having a punching bag, running, weightlifting, hitting the gym. Like this is a lot of people in general, but specifically because men feel they have a limited outlet into how they can express or release whatever it is they're experiencing. This is a way of decompression. It doesn't have to be the only way to decompress, but it's definitely a very useful one because like Kima said, it is also about releasing. And just as you release energy through punching a bag, you release energy through writing something out. You release energy through crying, through sitting somewhere and just bawling your eyes out because thank God you can. Thank God you have a way to release it through your eyes, whatever sadness it is. Sometimes going to like the middle of a parking lot and screaming, like, and just yelling with no care for like, who's this gonna bother, this and that. Just having a space where you can do whatever you need to do to let it go. Sometimes you don't have access to those things. Sometimes you don't have access to those spaces, which is where you can revert back to like maybe more subtle forms of decompression, internal, right? Meditation is a great one. I don't want to go too into that because I don't think we have time, but yeah, so these are awesome forms of decompression, and we are honing in on the writing the writing form right now and how that is decompression and the way we experience that as a way of release.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that it's very important to remember that yes, the as we touch back on like how oftentimes environmental stimuli are the reasons that we often like you said, Saz, inherited these mental illnesses, and it wasn't something that was already within us. Like sometimes we can't, like you're right, sometimes we don't, especially marginalized people like often don't have the spaces to scream, to cry, because then that often ends in police intervention, that often ends in that often ends in some type of authority over us when we release ourselves. So I think that's why it's also important to remember like the internal things as well, because as hard as it is to not feel safe in the external world, that is where we provide ourselves that safety. I think it's important to remember that self-actualization starts from the bottom. It doesn't start from the top. Like oftentimes we look at that pyramid and we think that the spiritual realm has to be this thing that we are reaching, and that this thing that we have to obtain after we attain all these other physical things, when in reality the spiritual is the biggest tier, is the bottom tier. So I think that's also to remember as we talk about decompression, as we talk about writing, as we talk about all these other things, that the spiritual parallels the physical.
I wanted to ask Coop, in this process between us giving the writing prompt and now, have you written anything as of yet? No worries if you haven't, but if you have and you would like to share, that would be really cool. We'd love to hear what you wrote.
I ain't write nothing. I thought this was supposed to be an at-home assignment.
Okay, that's cool.
It definitely could be an at-home assignment as well. So if you
Hey,
want to
look,
look back at this,
hey, listen, I wrote 3 or 4 of them things down. I got write a poem to your younger self, the last text message you received, write about a time you was lost, who you were before the world told you who to be. I like that one. And then how do you decompress? Oh, these kids fitting to get all these.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
That's good.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, we appreciate it.
Man,
how much more?
I want to do a poem, but I'd be scared to do that because I don't be hitting the little moves like y'all be in another space, man. I'd be like, nah, I'm good. Little girl on the just did one this morning on a joint. She did her poem this morning. She came and she said, hey everybody. Then she said, I'm just gonna get right into it. I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
That was Anaya.
Oh,
we know her.
I go, all right. So I guess my question, so how about this? I'm gonna change it around. So I guess my question to you all is, since I'm assuming everybody in here is a poet, right? Or some form of artist. When you are performing or in the space to do your poems, what space do you necessarily have to get in to do those in the way that you do them? I admire them because I'm not a spoken word artist. I would love to be, just like I would love to be a singer, but I know I ain't. Right. But I know for artists, there's certain things that you have to encompass or, go through to get yourself in the mind, especially for the type of piece that you have written in that particular time. So I guess, like, what is your process in going through that experience, if that makes sense?
If I could talk first, I just want to say that first, I think that destroying the notion that we can't do certain things, that we can't be certain things, is like the first step into entering that world. Like, I know, like you were just saying, like you feel like you can't be a singer or you can't be this, and that was like half joking or whatever. But I just want to like put an emphasis on not having like self-limiting ideas before we even do any of that, because you never know. Everything, I'm a strong believer in every single thing being obtainable, and maybe that's a little too optimistic, maybe that's a little too naive, but that's how I got you. That's how I exist in the world right now. So I feel like because of that, that is the first step to the space that I get in, I guess. Like, I'm very heavy on, like, when I'm writing a poem and I'm feeling like, oh, this poem is like, I'm unable to write it, or I feel, or I go into like a performance space and I see all these wonderful poets and I'm like, oh, I'm unable to do what they do. Getting out of that headspace is the first thing. And I feel like the next step is to just do it. And then prove yourself wrong, or not even necessarily wrong, prove that you can heal through the doing and through the action is the biggest thing. Because I feel like oftentimes when we battle cognitive distortions, we deal with we constantly like emphasize the harmful things, and we'll emphasize, oh, I couldn't do it because it was hard for me to like put the pen to paper. I couldn't do it because my legs were shaking when I was on stage. I can't do it because this and that. But we don't look at how we did do it. We don't look at the praise that we received. We don't look at the praise we should be receiving within ourselves. So I feel like all of those things kind of like help push me in a better direction when it comes to like my relationship with writing and things like that. Like, I have to get out of the cans and the what is it, and the comparisons and all these other things, and I have to step into, okay, what story do I have to tell, and how can I tell that in the most authentic way without being challenged by other people telling their stories in authentic ways as well.
For me, the space I have to get into is a space of, this is about and for nobody but me. I'm having a conversation with myself every time I pick up that pen, every time I get on that stage. I don't care how many people are watching me. It's not about y'all. Like, this is about me and something I need to share for whatever reason. Sometimes I don't even understand why I need to write a poem or I need to perform a poem. I just know the feeling of something is prompting me to, and that's why we call it a prompt. Like, something is, it's like a little push
Bars.
to just go, like to just make something happen, and you have no intellectual like idea of why. You don't know if you're going to be good at it. I have written so many poems that I look back at now and I'm like, that was trash. And I have to stop myself from looking at it like that, because I'm like, no, that person who wrote that poem needed to write that poem in that moment. And so I think like the biggest space that I need to come from is, one, not having an expectation of myself. It's not about me proving something to myself. It's about, and even in the fact that I need to prove something to myself, that is something I can have a conversation with myself about and just start, right? Why do I feel like I need to prove something to myself right now? I have an entire poem about that. And I guess the second one is like getting out of my head and just getting into my body. Like that's my best performance.
My body. Okay.
But,
out my head and my body. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I just need to not care on the mental note for a second. Like I just need to feel something and really just let it out. And to me, like the performers that I appreciate the most, I don't care if their writing isn't the best writing in the world. I don't care if they had like stumbles in their performance. If I felt you, that's my favorite performance. I don't care like how clean and crafty another person's performance is. If I felt your piece, I felt that you felt your piece, that's my favorite piece that I listen to. And so that's a place for me to start. Yeah.
Thank you for that question.
What's up with them fish back there?
Those my parents' fish. But yeah. So you said, did you want to answer as well?
So I think we're technically out of time now, but just briefly for me, currently, it's really about writing what I want, when I want to write it. And the when is super important because, to quote Nikki Finney, you will never have time to write. It will never happen. You have to make time to write. And so for me, it's like intentionally carving out time that I dedicate to writing what I want, when I want to write it, and whatever else is going on, too bad. Cat starves, dinner don't get made, email don't get sent, I don't post this thing for this thing I'm promoting, I ignore calls and text messages, I don't do the Zoom for the poetry thing because right now I gotta write poetry about a thing. What I want, when I run. And
got it.
All right.
Thank you for Coop. You were the only one.
Yeah, we had somebody in here and then they dipped out.
all these future people about to get all of these views, though.
Yes, thank you to the future people watching and listening.
I appreciate it. That's the good stuff.
Yes. All right. I guess
y'all have a great one.
You as well. Thank you.
Huh?
Alrighty. I guess it's time to adjourn. I'm about to stop the recording now.